All right. Welcome to a very rare edition of the webinars. We're here on a Friday, but we've also got a first-time presenter paired with a friend who hasn't been around these parts in some time. And they're going to be talking about disruptive green products and connected living technologies that are really transforming consumer preferences and purchase patterns. Today, we welcome Tom Halford, Vice President, Premium and Builder Brands at Samsung Electronics America. He leads Samsung's home appliance builder business in the United States, and he's responsible for strategy, distribution network processes, product development, sales programs, policy management, and marketing in the channel. Tom has nearly 40 years of experience in the industry and has served on the Policy Advisory Board for the Harvard University Joint Center for Housing Studies. Now, today's webinar would not be possible without the support of Samsung Electronics America, Inc. They are a recognized innovation leader in consumer electronics, mobile devices, and enterprise solutions. A wholly owned subsidiary of Samsung Electronics Company Limited, SEA is pushing beyond the limits of today's technology with a portfolio of groundbreaking consumer and enterprise products, including one of America's fastest growing home appliance brands. To learn more, please visit www.samsung.com/us/home-appliances. And that last one's got an S on the end, so make sure you use the plural. Now, I'm Mike Collignan, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. And I hope that during the course of today's presentation, you'll submit questions for our guest. And to do so, you're going to use that questions box that's probably on the right side of your screen. Now, don't hold off on sending in those questions because we might take some about halfway through as well as at the end. I'll review those questions and we'll pose them to Tom during the Q&A time. Our host today is Ron Jones, President of Green Builder Media and co-founder of the Green Builder Coalition. Ron, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a long time, and I'm looking forward to it because Tom Halford is one of my favorite people in the industry and also a great dinner companion, by the way, if you ever get a chance to spend an evening with Tom. And also, welcome to all those in attendance. It'll be great to get some feedback and hear your thoughts as well. So I guess we'll just jump right in there, Tom. And the first thing I'd like to do is kind of explore this notion that we've been recognizing recently about the normalization of sustainability. And, you know, from our end of it, what we've seen is that it's gone, you know, an evolutionary route from when we talked about the sustainability of specific resources and maybe sustainable agriculture and sort of general topics like that into something that's even bigger. Where we talk about the sustainability of an industry, or we talk about, when you get right down to it, the sustainability of our way of life and our society, and maybe even sustainability of civilization. So those are pretty big things, but I guess specifically, if I wanted to narrow it down, do you agree that there's been a normalization of sustainability in general? And what do you think has really changed in the last, let's say, 2 to 5 years that affects our industry?
Well, Ron, first of all, thanks for having me join you in this webinar. I'm looking forward to this conversation. But to directly address your questions, you know, change happens in stages, phases, if you will. And I do believe history, sustainability in the home building industry, we're in that normalization phase where have a higher awareness than they did at the beginning. And it's more conversational. It's conversational, and people are learning from one another at a different rate than what there was before. So with change comes this process that follows it. And I do think we're in that state where I can have more conversations with industry leaders these days on this subject than ever before. Before, I wouldn't say that would be the case. And the conversations are more meaningful, they're deeper, and they're becoming more technical. But one of the things that's always interesting to me about this phase, it happens with a continuing quest for more. And now that we've gotten to this stage, I'm hearing of people wanting to go beyond this. And that's the real exciting part, that it's this transformation. It's not over, it's still in process. But it's normalizing now to where I don't know what the end state is. Hopefully the end state affects positively homes and the way we live in our homes. But what I like is that there's continuing energy around this, and people are still wanting to learn and grow and add to what we do today.
Well, what do you see as the key behavioral drivers that have enhanced the adoption of sustainability or have contributed to the tipping point that allowed this transformation to take place?
Well, yeah, obviously somebody's got to start the conversation, and that's not always easy to do because change in the home building industry is never easily embraced up front. But we owe a great deal of gratitude to the people who not only started the conversation, but those that have sustained it and dealt with all the skepticism, the naysayers about what this is all about. Call them pioneers, call them innovators, call them what you want. But those, to me, to get it to the point where we are today, people have to be pretty bold. They've got to take a position on something and continue to grow with what that's all about and help positively influence the change, not threaten it in any way, but it's a fine edge. When you're trying to create change, you got to want it bad, and these people have that an ability about themselves to talk about this, be strong, have their convictions, and have people understand that they're not going to go away. And then little by little, people, they start to invite other people to join them. The conversation gets bigger, and that's where it happens. Those are the tipping point type moments when other people start to engage with your convictions and become students of the change and, move it down the road. That's not always easy to get to. And the cycle time from beginning of the conversation to the tipping point is not always appreciated. Some people want it to happen faster, but it is what it is, and it has its own natural course.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of us have been referred to as troublemakers over the years, but the good part about it is that we're beginning to really recognize the fact that the change drivers are not just in the industry, but folks that are on the consumer side of the equation. And there's an interesting question about do the behavioral and purchase drivers change across different audience segments? For example, let's say active adults versus millennials or boomers or whatever the case may be. What's your take on that?
Well, I take more of the lead here from what I've learned over the years from observing consumers more on the retail side. But that said, I'm also going to blend in what I've learned from people that are home buyers in the new construction market. Certainly there are generational type issues and behaviors and expectations that are out there. While there are some difference, there are a lot of similarities, particularly as people age. I mean, you've heard the sayings, and there's some great advertising out there. We all become our parents sooner or later. And regardless of what generation you're from, I do think there is a maturing of people to have common views. That said, the challenging part is with an ever-increasing diversity of population, the understanding of people, their positions becomes murky. It becomes more fragmented. And with aging, you start to see a commonization of it. That said, I think one of the things that is absolutely necessary is people to write about this subject, the education. Media plays a big role in this, very objective views to support this. So it's a point in time, but this subject is continuing to grow and expand. And the more it is talked about, the more people understand it, embrace it, they don't fear it. Consumer behavior is fickle. Quite often as consumers, we'll say one thing and do another. But deep down, the person knows what they are true, what they stand for, and they eventually come back to what is ultimately good for them. And I think more and more importantly, what's good for society and the environment. And it's that maturing of a ever increasing diversity population, fragmented, if you will, that brings us together. And the media, the knowledge that we're gaining in the space contributes to that.
Well, it's interesting, and it points to the data that we have at Green Builder Media shows us that consumers specify products 60% of the time across all categories, getting down to specific products and brands, and then 50% of consumers want for example, a net zero home, and they're willing to spend up to $9,000 in sustainable product upgrades. Now, I don't know if that fickle element is in there, but it's very interesting data. And maybe you can give us a peek inside the kimono, as they say. How is this transformation in the consumer demand and expectations impacted the decisions about innovation and product development for product manufacturers, and particularly in the specialty arenas that Samsung has?
Well, this is a great area of conversation. First and foremost, consumers these days, as we look at the diversity of them, one thing that is common, because of the significant advancements in technologies, in both in the products themselves, manufacturing, they've learned to become accustomed to innovation, and they expect innovation. They want more of it. And there's always early adopters in something that's innovative. But with these early adopters, it begins to spread and become more widespread throughout the marketplace. Consumers are somewhat predictable in this behavior. There are those early adopters out there that validate innovation. Most often it does move forward and broaden its market appeal. Sometimes it doesn't. But I think, to your point, when the consumer is faced with significant investments, and given the average price of a newly constructed home these days, they're going to be seeking products that are more sustainable and a greater value with the more monies they're having to put forward. So they're becoming more engaging. They're requiring builders to build with more of their needs in mind than ever before. So, in saying that, I think the more consumers exhibit this behavior, the more builders are going to have to adapt and find more ways of serving their unique needs. Certainly, there are certain building structure materials that will be common that are not something that a consumer will get involved in, but in those products that have a name, that are known for innovation, they're going to be demanding them more. And the industry has to be open to these consumers wanting them for the biggest purchase in their life. So, that's not common. There's been a lot of builders of homes that, here's my home, this is what I put in it. I don't think it's going to be that easy anymore. And I'm not saying it is today. It's going to be more and more challenging, because riddled throughout all of this is this quest for consumers to personalize what they buy and invest in. They want to make it theirs. And I think the more insight, the more builders understand this and adapt their organizations to serve that, the more will happen. The happier the home buyer will be with the home purchase, that they got what they wanted. But innovation, sustainability, efficiencies, environmental safe type products, it's more conversational. It's like people are becoming more and more knowledgeable in this space than they ever were before as consumers. And that's a good thing, absolutely a good thing. And it makes the industry better. It just does. And to not address that conversation and support it puts the industry at risk, because then consumers are frustrated with the homes or the products that they buy.
And Tom, we can't have this conversation without parsing out a little bit of a discussion about the millennial sector, the role that they're playing. And I think that there's a good deal of, perhaps it's earned, I'm not sure, there's a good deal of credit for their augmented sustainability ethic. I hope that that's a real thing. But in the transformation of the housing market and how builders can capitalize on this and take this challenge and turn it into opportunity. How does one take the first step in starting to meet those expectations?
Ron, again, great question here. This is challenging for builders, for every manufacturer of products out there. You know, when you look at what the influence was of the baby boomers, a lot of manufacturers have grown. Manufacturers and builders have grown up with that consumer, and that's how they have established their business over a number of years. And that experience with that prevalent buyer, as known as the baby boomer, has really had a broad influence on who that company is in their culture. To your point, here comes the millennial generation, albeit slowly, but gaining strength every year. They're coming with a different view on everything, essentially. And it's like you're going to have to learn who millennials are. And when I say that, they're not one size fits all. They are, as a group, have some similarities, but then there are, big differences. But what I find in them is that they are a more mature consumer in some respects in asking, challenging, shopping, comparing than what the previous generations have been. And that alone, when you're selling a product, whether it be a home or a finished product, the people that engage with millennials have got to be educated. They've got to understand this, and they have to support this. You can't push that conversation aside. You have to address it head on. So when I think about the challenge of purchasing a home, salespeople representing the home really got to know what that home is all about, but more importantly, in addition to the home, what that company is all about and what they stand for, because they are very socially minded. And that's probably a newer element in the purchase process, because they do so much more research on the front end because of technology, the internet, than whatever baby boomers did before. We see it in consumer products, whether it's durables or consumer packaged goods. They are researching all the time. I myself know that in the purchasing area of the home building industry, one of the things I find amazing as millennials move into these critical roles, they're doing more and more research on who the suppliers are online before they ever engage with them. The days of calling a supplier, calling a purchasing person and say, hey, can I come in and talk to you about my product? Sure, come on in. And then having the conversation, the learning experience that way, I think they're rapidly diminishing. There's so much knowledge at the, information at the fingertips of purchasing people today. They do the research. They have, and when you engage with somebody who does that, you got to talk about your products. You got to talk about the sustainability of what it is that you do and how you do it. If you don't, you're missing the mark. So it really challenges everybody in the process. It challenges people that sell and on the retail side and people that engage with the home building industry to address these questions, because they're learning about you well before you step into the normal buy-sell relationship communications.
Tom, that's very well said. I know that, for the old dinosaurs like me who really didn't have access to all that information and certainly weren't challenged by consumers who had all that information at their fingertips, some of these things are like completely new frontiers for us. A good example would be in connected living. And if we think about that particular sector, we think about that part of the equation, some interesting things that we've discovered. Smart home technology market is expected to reach $40 billion by next year.
Yeah.
$40 billion, and that's serious change. And it's providing, new levels of convenience, efficiency, comfort, independence, security, all these things to homeowners in all walks of life. One of the data points that we've discovered is that 65% of Americans currently own some form of smart home technology, or they plan to purchase something this year. And so we're shifting from what's known as the mindless home, which is what I suppose I was guilty of building. Disparate devices with separate functionality weren't even on the map at that point, to a whole new frontier of the mindful home with integrated by voice control to intuitive home, central hub connect devices and lights and mechanical systems, and it learns our behaviors and optimizes resource use and indoor air quality and just our entire built environment. So smart home devices are saving time and making life easier and conserving resources. But what are the biggest growth areas in smart living from your perspective?
Well, the smart home technologies at the beginning and still today are highly fragmented. More importantly, I've seen with the transformation from hardwired to wireless, more ecosystems being developed for connected living, where you've got common products that have a lot of connectivity, IoT products, for example, that are connecting products today unlike they've ever done before. Also, you can't let go of the cell phone. The cell phone, the smartphone, has enabled connected living to a whole new level, and these ecosystems benefit from the, having apps on these cell phones, because connected living is just not about being in the home. Connected living is about being outside of your home and being able to connect with your home, whether it just be the home itself and checking on it, or communicating somehow to everybody that's there. So there's a lot of richness here, and it's not making your home a computer. It's kind of dealing with some of those deep down concerns that you may have about the safety of your home, the security. While you're away, is something on that you should turn off? Has there been a leak detected? Can you communicate with somebody about your home? It brings all that together, and I'm an advocate of this whole connected living space. And we were talking about normalization here earlier. We're not in a normalized position with smart homes or connected living. We're starting to move there, but what I think is real is that these different components that are smart technologies have got to be able to connect with one another, and for the benefit of not only the homeowner, whether it be just the spouses there, but the children themselves too, and any parents that may be living with them. There's tremendous advantages in this area. So how I look at what's happening with smart technologies evolving to ecosystems, so moving into connected living, it's nothing more than what's happened already in the transformation in the cell phone industry. You remember the phones that you first got out, they're just very basic function. And then we got into flip phones, and then we moved to smartphones, and everybody thought, wow, I just moved from a very traditional phone to a flip phone. Why do I need to move to a smartphone? And they're that much more expensive. Well, if you look in retrospect, what's happened, it's no longer need to have, it's nice to have. And when I think about what's happening with homes, it's, no longer need to have, nice to have. You can't live without it. It just enables one's life in a whole different way than whatever could have happened before. And these smart technologies have got to start to combine in ecosystems to create a very simple way, one app, if you will, on your phone, to be able to have that connection with your home. And if it's too complex and you've got multiple apps for different products that are not connected, it's a very frustrating experience. So we're moving that way. The industry is moving that way. I know it's been difficult for a lot of businesses that work at the local level with builders that have provided traditional hardwiring to move to more wireless. But wireless technologies are enabling all this, and the new technologies and firmware, softwares, it's unbelievable what's happening out there. And I'm a profound believer that we're not even close to where this is going. I know at Samsung I've been introduced to a lot of things that I had not yet seen in my career previously, but now that I am with a high-tech company who understands how all this stuff can integrate and has control of the core technology and chips and processors and flash drives, they're able to do things to build an ecosystem unlike you've ever experienced. So I'm an advocate of it. It's fragmented, but it's moving to connected living, and sooner or later, the home building industry will need to be offering things that are, you can't live without them. They're just not nice to have. You can't live without them.
Well, of course, these fragmented systems that you refer to tend to require users, homeowners, to cobble together a smattering of devices. They've got separate apps, as you indicated, incongruent functionality, and it can be frustrating and time-consuming. And the more advanced platforms like Samsung SmartThings now, can help homeowners connect devices together and streamline the integration and really improve the experience. The SmartThings has a wide spectrum of use cases. What are some of your favorite applications and capabilities that you're willing to share with us?
Well, still learning and growing in this space. I think IoT products, SmartThings is our brand. They're the linchpins, without a doubt. But most importantly, those are products that are out of sight, out of mind. They enable other products. So what I'm starting to see, and I'll just use Samsung yet once again as an example here. It's how would you like an experience that if your TV is in one room and you're in the kitchen, you have your refrigerator be able to mirror the TV on the refrigerator so you can watch TV while you're in the kitchen. And that's out there today. And when I think about that, that's always phenomenal. If you're in the kitchen and somebody rings your doorbell, you can have somebody, you can know who's ringing your doorbell looking at the screen of your refrigerator. If you're outside of your home and you're at the grocery store, you can, once again, connect with your refrigerator from outside and see inside with what you have or you don't have that you need to pick up if you don't have it. And that's that lifestyle impact that I'm talking about. It alters you in a very positive way, and it's non-threatening. The IoT technologies, the connectivity are just beginning. And when I think about being away from the home and getting, if somebody's trying to get into your home, break security, break into your home, instantly. If your dishwasher starts to leak, it instantly. Or if your water softener starts to leak or your water heater starts to leak, it instantly. IoT components can sense that and send you that message. And all it's doing is protecting you. And it makes your life more positive, reduces the headaches, and gives you that, oh my gosh, look at this, kind of a thing. And when you think about the younger generations being exposed to this today, and as they grow into consumers, their expectations of this are going to even grow. But more importantly, because they're so used to it, they'll be able to figure out what's beyond this, what's the next, century of innovation in this space. So it's an exciting time to see all this come together. And for those people that are not familiar with this IoT technology, SmartThings, the connectivity, I would encourage you in your existing homes to become experimenting with it, understand it. And then when you have the opportunity to consider a new home, think about the ecosystem that you can put in that home from the beginning to help your life inside as well as outside the home. Not only you as the owner, but everybody that's in that home be able to connect to that home and really use that as a connecting point with people's lives.
This is really fascinating. Tom, I want to drill just a little bit deeper in something you alluded to, and that is the elephant in the room, if you will, about connected technology and in and its effect on security. You mentioned that. But first, let me say, Mike, I'm going to ask this next question, and then at that point, if you have a question or two from our folks in attendance, I'd like to make time for that. But Tom, the security concerns aren't evenly spread among different consumer groups and age ranges.
Right.
I mean, younger people, they grew up with this technology, and they feel more at ease with data sharing and those kinds of things. And they've grown up, without any fear of it. And so how do security concerns impact purchasing decisions from your experience? And what does that mean for manufacturers? In other words, what do you forecast for the tightening of security protections and protocols? And what can manufacturers and the specifiers do to take advantage of that?
Well, I think here again, let's allow me just to answer this question from this perspective. I think security IoT products that enable that are more in the mindset of millennial type people than older people or older consumers. That said, what I always smile about, even though people who are more senior in their years, there are still seniors that are early adopters of these technologies, and I'm starting to really start to understand that the history of older people, more senior, not adapting to technology, I think that's becoming less and less of an issue. It's always going to be out there. It's actually going to be out there with every generation almost. But what it's interesting to me, the more that a person values their life, whether it be them as an individual, their possessions, their family, the more maturing they are, the more security that they're going to be thinking about and putting it into their homes, requesting it to be built into their homes. And because when you look at the cost of this, it's so inexpensive these days, why not do it? And when you can put it on the front end, you may add to it, you may change it, you may upgrade it, but at least you've got something. But even if you start small, the great thing about IoT type products and the connectivity, you can keep adding to it. And this is how you got to be mindful of what kind of ecosystem are you building. Are you building one that's interconnected? Are you building one that doesn't, relate to one another and help you, while you're in the home and outside of the home through your cell phone? That's, to me, kind of the real area where people should be thinking about. Security, again, if you value your life, you value your possessions, you'll start to move more and more in this area. I don't think it's an overreaction. I think it's consumers being mature to take advantage of the technologies that are out there and putting them in their home, and frankly, feeling quite proud and comfortable that they do have that security. And it could be easy as the leak detections, glass breaking, doorbells that when you ring, you can see who's there. You got cameras in and outside of your home. There's a host of things. Certainly, again, we're not trying to say your home should be a computer or, it's locked down, but there's a great personal value, deep value to a person, that they have confidence that everything's okay. They don't have to worry about that. And this is where you've got to trust the manufacturers, their branding, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you've got that, then you're in a pretty safe place. You can worry about other things besides your home, or people in your home, and it allows you to focus more. So I think there's a lot of peace of mind to it, and I'm seeing it happen across all the generations. But if you're going to be a builder, you're going to be appealing to home buyers, you got to bring that area of conversation into the discussion, because it's so inexpensive, and you need to be supporting your home buyers, whether they're asking for it or not. You got to make it a conversation.
I think those are great insights, and I hope that people are taking notes on this. Mike, do we have at this point in time any comments or questions that you'd like to share?
Yeah, we certainly do. We have a question or two from Will. The first one goes to Tom. Tom, what is your perspective, or kind of give us your thoughts on government policies such as Title 20 or 24 out in California?
Oh, wow. I have to be honest with you. I'm not familiar with specifically with Title 20 and Title 24. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I need a little prompting here. Real help.
Well, the green codes. So you've got certain energy efficiency requirements, or maybe potentially some site requirements, or in some small cases you do have some water requirements. I know, like the city of Santa Fe has got a residential green building code for energy and for water. So what's your take, kind of, I guess, on the whole topic of codes, as regards to requiring either energy efficiency or any kind of sustainability component?
Well, I mean, I'll lean back on my experience in the home appliance industry, where there were mandated federal energy standards for products. And I got to tell you, back in the 80s, that's how far I go back, when they started coming out, and then subsequently Energy Star type programs, they can always be looked at in a very cynical way. But I know for myself that when I think about the energy consumption of refrigeration products, laundry products, back then, they were extremely heavy consumers. And, I've learned that once we're under those mandates, you start to discover other ways of making things even better. And they just didn't start and stop. They kept increasing them, which in essence only made us as manufacturers in the home appliance industry that much better. Same thing with the automobile industry. When you look at whether it be mandated miles per gallon or some of the safety standards, the products are better. They're fundamentally better. Are there some expense associated with it? Yes. But when you look at what the challenges are with the environment and the impact is on inefficient products that could be made easily efficient, it's something that needs to be looked at if the manufacturers or the industry of these products are not doing themselves. And I think there are some very, very responsible manufacturers out there that look at the energy impact, the sustainability impact of their products in the world. Not all of them do it, and where there's an industry not doing it collectively, and there are technologies out there that could move this forward and go to even higher levels for less expense, all the better. I mean, there are refrigerators today that operate equal to or less than what it takes to light a light bulb. I can assure you, if we had not got on this energy standards direction back in the 80s to where we are now, the industry may have never have gotten there. And think about all the additional utilities that would need to be brought on to keep up with inefficient energy products. So when you think about water conservation, energy conservation, to industries that are not known for this, I think they should be scrutinized and challenged. And codes are a certain way, whether they be state regulated or national. You can't, have a broad swipe about this, but I do think in isolated areas where it can make a difference, you have to consider it and support it. I mean, I've learned to trust government in the way that they don't do things most times just to do something and penalize something. Certainly there's a lot of things that they do that you can question that, but when you get right down to it, when you look beyond what's being talked about, why are they doing it? I think there's some real justifiable reasons. I'm not trying to endorse everything they do is right, but some of the things they do are pretty good, particularly to ensure our futures.
We also have a question from Monica. She's wanting to know about privacy. What about privacy? Are there concerns that you have or don't have in regards to privacy when we're talking about a lot of these connected devices, smart devices that we're able to access via the internet?
Well, I don't look at them as much as the devices of the products themselves. If they're connected into ecosystems, then The biggest thing that you need to have security with is with the cell phone that the app itself sits on. And so long as that there is security, things are being taken care of that way, you're great. I don't think these individual devices are in a position where they themselves and by themselves can provide that privacy. It's all about how you engage with them and how your cell phone and this ecosystem that I described interacts with them. That would be the primary concern. So, as with anything, if your information on your phone is at risk, then the things that the IoT products do in connection with your phone are at risk also.
Excellent. Well, Mike, hold additional questions for us, and Tom, I'm going to come from a completely different direction now, as you probably would expect, and that is, let's talk a little bit about health and wellness. There is an ever-growing greater awareness about the impact of our homes and indoor environment on health and wellness, and it's also driving major change in the housing market. In fact, again, Green Builder Media, we gather data on all kinds of things, and the data in this shows that IAQ has quickly shifted from one of those nice-to-haves that you referred to a must-have, and it's as important as location in some audience segments, especially if people have young children or if they have health problems of their own and so forth. How do you see the growing interest in healthy homes and good IAQ impacting consumer behavior, and how does the industry respond to that?
Well, I think more and more industry has been responding to it because health concerns are such a topic of conversation in the media. When it comes down to, I go back to a pretty simple one, lead in paint. Once the issues became known more and more about the impact of lead in paint on, to people in homes or just in general, the industry was responsible and started to take action there. Some people may question that it wasn't fast enough, but I do think once things started to become more understood, they were taking action. But herein lies the issue. There's an old saying, we don't know what we don't know. And back to an earlier conversation we had, Ron, people who do know got to speak out. And when people speak out, then there's the conviction that people who change are the ones that stay connected to something and they don't let go. They keep talking. It's personal to them. They see the impact it can have. People like that are needed. And once it becomes media worthy, I think, people will read, they'll hear about it. Understanding. We can all be cynical about the media and what they say, but there are times where they are absolutely phenomenally helpful to society. And if they are responsible and very objective in their reporting and how this issue is and what consumers can do, then the consumer learns, and I think they can make better decisions if there are products out there that are more helpful to them. But at the end of the day, while industry learns, consumers learn, I think we need to help one another, and there needs to be that spirit of collaboration out there. But where I see things, if a builder's not moving on this and they're getting confronted by questions by consumers and are unable to answer, they're going to lose that business. And when I think about the low conversion of traffic these days from home shopper to home buyer, I think it's roughly about 5 to 6% of traffic is what converts. When you're at risk of converting lower, it's a threat to your business. And if you are aware of these things, your sales organization can stand in the conversation. You can convert at a higher level. And whether they're asking for it or not, I always think it's good for that to be talked about so it can show your potential home buyer that you care, you understand, you're bringing in something to help them. We build with this product because it has less of an impact on health with other materials that are out there. And I think more and more people know that, the better. So there is a responsibility, but it's just not the responsibility of the builders. There's also a consumer responsibility. And this is where I think media can play a big role.
I couldn't agree more. I have one more topic area that we could examine briefly, and then we'll let Mike bring in some more of the great questions from folks who are with us. And that has to do with this transformation that we see toward net zero. Another quickly growing trend, that we've been tracking, and it's the rapid movement toward net zero, and of course led by California, as many things are in this sector. And it may go, they may go all electric there, at some point. So innovation in high performance products and renewable energy and automation technologies and corresponding advancements in codes and policy and regulations. These are facilitating a massive migration toward net zero structures, and the global market for net zero structures is expected to explode to almost 79 billion by 2025. So how is this race to zero impact, if you will, aligned with changes in consumer demand from your perspective?
Well, Ron, this is a big question and a big conversation.
Yeah.
Here again, I think what's happening here is that you have these earlier adopters that are learning as they, commit themselves to going this direction. And this is like a tsunami of change, in my opinion. What is new and innovative will eventually become standard. And, everybody looks at maybe there is a added cost, but they're not able to articulate very well or monetize the advantage. What's the benefit? And really, there are numerous ones. When I think of the cost of operating a home, if let's just go that very basic way, the utility cost that you had in the past is extremely high and subject to change and ever increasing. Making that investment right up front to minimize that really pays you money back. And if the industry can't adapt to understanding what these changes are all about that create these net zero energy homes and the advantages that they bring to consumer, I think they need to start to pay more attention, because there's more upside for consumers than downside. There may be a little bit more cost in the front end. There may not be. Some of these builders are finding building sciences to be creating more efficiencies to offset some of these costs. But nonetheless, a net zero energy home has tremendous value to our society and to the homeowners themselves. But you can't rush this decision. It's a conversation. Buying a home is a planned purchase. And in a planned purchase, much like I said earlier, I hope builders in their websites, even before the consumer engages, talk about this stuff in ways on the internet, independent of a salesperson, that a consumer, potential home buyer, can understand. They may want to make some trade-offs if the builder is providing some options in order to achieve net zero energy home. Don't know, but there needs to be a conversation, whether it's face-to-face or through some sort of medium or through education. I'm for one to think that if we could ever move to a world of net zero energy homes, what do you think the impact of that would be? It would be monetarily to consumers huge, detrimental to some other type known businesses, but we can no longer hold on to our past with the evolution of these technologies that bring so many benefits. And the more these technologies are embraced and used, with volume, cost goes down. And that's just a natural evolution of this market. I'm for one, I know myself, whether it's a car or other products that I buy, even, we bought a home 3 years ago down in Franklin, Tennessee. I was all over this space in conversation. And the realtor, fumbled that, I have to get back to you. I have to get back to you. I don't know. I have to get back to you. But they got to know. They got to know if a home has this or that and what the impact is on utilities. I hope I'm helping the conversation. It's bigger than I think the time that we have, but to me, it's of necessity. And once these net zero energy homes are out there, the more people will understand and will want them.
Tom, I think you're exactly right. And I think that the most important word that you said is education. And from the perspective of the builder must embrace that education so that they're not intimidated by these technologies or by these suites of opportunities that come their way. Because, you know, I often imagine a time when the first time a builder was asked to build a house that included electrical current, you know, electricity, for crying out loud, or indoor plumbing, and they were probably intimidated and offended by the fact that the consumer was asking them for something that they weren't familiar with. I don't think you can survive in this industry, or any other for that matter, if you shy away from the undeniable progress that we're going to continue to see in this sector, and you have to be educated in order to thrive in this industry. So, you know, Tom, I could talk with you for hours. I could listen to your insights, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be that selfish. Mike, do you have some questions or comments from those who are joining us today?
Yes, we do. We got one more from Will, and this is a question that either of you could take, both of you can take. It's pretty open-ended. He's asking for you to define sustainability. What does it mean to you? Is it just about energy efficiency? Is it about maybe greening various products or or projects? Is it about the carbon footprint? What does it mean to you?
Ron,
Tom, let me take a shot at this
first, and then I'll follow you.
Okay, right. I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna step outside the box of this thought process and respond in a way. I probably quoted this 1,000 times in presentations over the years. I was watching a PBS special about cattle ranching, and this is 25 years ago. I was watching this documentary about the ranching tradition and cattle raising and that sort of thing, and it was the riding and the roping and the branding and the way of life and all that. But at the core of it, a question was asked of a lady rancher up in, I think, in northeastern New Mexico, and she was asked about what it really means. And the answer to me was the core of sustainability. She said, what we do here, people see as raising cattle, but that's not quite right. What we do here is we grow grass, and that grass is converted into something that people can use. That's sustainability. If you don't take care of the grass, you're not going to put anything on the table that people can use. So I understand that that's an abstract answer to your question, but sustainability means something that is continual, that we can continue to rely on, and if it's in the built environment, it means that we are going to find a way to not only break even, but to be regenerative to the systems and the resources of this world that we occupy. So, Tom, I'll give you a shot.
Well, Ron, it was a great answer. I'll, behind my answer will be a bit of personalization, but I've learned that sustainability, to me, is things that I care about taking care of. And granted, as an individual, when you can't take care of everything, you got to do what you can to take care of what you can. And I think, when down at a personal level, if people could think about sustainability that way, when you add up all the people in the world trying to do something very positive for things that they care about and be a model to your children, to your family, to your friends, or people that you don't even know, you impact other change. And, you know, I've seen this many times where in conversation, when I've talked about something that I deeply care about, and let's just say the environment, it's not a one-time conversation. I can't tell you, it's probably 9 times out of 10 where somebody will come up to me and say, Tom, I was thinking about what you said to me, and I want to let you know what I'm doing as a result. And you never know how critical that conversation is to somebody, that because of what you said or what you do, whether they heard you or they observed you, has caused them to do something now that's positive for the environment themselves also, that they wouldn't have otherwise done. So you never know how influential you can be with what you say or what you do to the cause of taking care of our environment. Now, there's many other things I would throw in that category, but I learned this from actually a group of guys that I used to get together with on Sunday mornings, and that, you know, there was 4 or 5 of us that we would read books. And our stated mission, you know, to ourselves is we just want to become good men. And we all shared a common bond of what good meant, and we would hold each other accountable to that. And it was amazing to have that influence in what I do every day, and the potential impact it could have with other people, because my mind is kind of captivated with just being a good man, and whatever that is, and what it causes me to be on the right road, behaving the right way, and doing the right things. Am I consistent in that? No. But I have a deep rooted mindset of taking care of things and doing what I can when I know I can't do everything.
Well, Tom, let me just say unabashedly that you're one of my favorite people on the planet out of all those billions, and you are a credit to our industry, to your company, and to people everywhere. Mike, do you have another question for us?
Hello, Mike.
Oh, sorry about that. I was on mute. I think that's a really good place to wrap up.
All right.
I think it's a good place to wrap up. So I wanted to take one more opportunity, though, to thank Samsung Electronics America. And I also wanted to thank all of our attendees for joining us today. And finally, a big thank you both to Tom and Ron for taking time out of their day to share their thoughts with us. Gentlemen, do you have any final parting thoughts?
Mike, if I could, I'd just like to say thank you to you, Ron, Mike, and Green Builder Media for giving me the opportunity to be on this. I've enjoyed the conversation with Ron. I'm sure Ron and I will have many more in our future. But to everybody that joined, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to listen to us talk about some important items in the home building world and the environment.
Tom, you've got a spot at my campfire anytime. Let's do this again soon. Mike, thanks for a great job, and thank you to everybody who tuned in today.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Safe travels.
And we hope you'll join us next month for another webinar. The one I'm referring to is from Uponor, and it will take place on Tuesday, September 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be joined by Cassie Schmid, and we're going to hear about smart leak detection systems and a water monitoring study that collected over 1 billion data points in 18 states. So you want to tune in for that. In the meantime, I hope you have a great weekend, a wonderful and relaxing Labor Day, and we'll see you back here in September. Take care, everyone.
All right.